Hi there, and welcome to another one of our release video presentations. My name is Dirk Leroy, I'm with UCAMCO in Belgium, and guess what? I'm going to take you on a tour of our latest integrated software revision. As you are about to discover, the version I'm presenting today is not your average software update. In fact, this release sets a landmark in the nearly 20-year lifespan of your favorite PCB data analysis tool. Our 2024.11 software distribution marks the beginning of a new era, one in which we start moving away from a number of legacy tools and practices and introduce you into an entirely new world of technologies and possibilities. So, as there is a lot to be shown and said, I'd say we quickly dive in. Turning to this first slide with a number of highlights for this release, you will see on items number 1 and 2 an innovative workflow engine Elea and Integr8tor Nexus backend, which is thoroughly packed with revolutionary technology. So that is basically the number crunching part, the part of the software that sits in some dark corner of the IT department, and that makes all these analysis results and accurate reports. So there is a whole package of new technologies that we have been introducing in there, basically to support item number 2 on this list, which is a browser-based user interfaces, Nexus JobManager and Nexus JobAdjuster. So yes, that means that as of this version, you will now be able to do the day-to-day operation of your integrator, meaning like submitting jobs and correcting something on the stack up or whatever, browsing through the QED reports, that from this version onwards can be done from a browser-based tool rather than from the Adobe Air and Cockpit tool that you know from before. So that's actually something quite interesting, I believe, and we will look into more detail into this. Also on the list of feature for this release is the Java upgrade to long-term support version 21, not only for Integrator, but also for its partner UCAM. And in line with tradition, of course, what we do each time with every release is trying to get you more performance to get the job done as accurately as it used to be, but faster and if possible, even better. And in order to do so, we have this list of, you could call them the usual suspects, with which we try to give you better first pass hit results. And this release is no exception to that. So we have also been looking into the stack-up recognition engine again, making it more powerful and more intelligent. We do backdrill information recognition from metadata. There is enhanced the drill span identification, and particularly for some weird data sets which have, or the data sets themselves are not weird, but data sets which have some weird numbering system for copper layers and drills that go with that. We have done also some optimizations in the area of painted data, so the painted data optimization, and that basically will be of interest to those of you who are using the rebuild job output option to take data from Integrator to their CAM departments, for instance. We are from now on outputting Gerber files in what we call the Gerber comment style, of which you see an example on the left. So that too is something that we will come back to in the course of this presentation. There is some things to be said about the rebuilt data again, but then in terms of integrity checks, making sure that the data that comes out as rebuilt data is indeed what it should be. We have a number of QED extensions. Signed executables is again something that is more of interest to the IT departments from your companies. There is a small item on the TeamViewer quick service application, and there are the usual code fixes, which also are part of every release that we do. Right. This brings us to item number 1 on our list was the workflow engine Elea. And in what comes next, basically, I'm going to try and explain a number of the concepts and the things that we have put into this backend server, as we called it in the introduction. But maybe for the sake of comprehension and for you to be able to tie whatever I'm going to say or what I'm going to say to some practical uses, what I would like to do first is basically give you a quick glimpse of this item number 2 that we had, which are the browser-based applications JobManager and JobAdjuster. Now, browser-based, that means that I'm turning to Google Chrome here, and the way that you access these applications. In my case, I'm running it on my own laptop, so there's hence the local host. It's name of the machine or local host, then the port number /Nexus. And upon confirming this, this will actually take you to the introduction page or the authentication page rather of the Nexus product. Now we will come back to how do you access a job manager and how do you access a job adjuster and what exactly is the difference between the two. For the moment, I just want to take you on a quick tour inside of the application so that you can familiarize yourself with a number of words and terminology that is going to be used when I talk about the Elea workflow engine. So this is it. We are here on the home page of one of our Nexus application, and the Nexus application that I have started, as you can see here in the top right, is JobAdjuster. JobAdjuster is the more powerful variant of the two, but we will talk a little bit more later about this. So really what you have here is 4 big areas, you could say, to start with, that are the eye catcher of the homepage. In here, the first one is everything that is related to the queue. So here you see the queue entries with the different columns, the columns that you will know from before. At the bottom here, there is the what you would call the file list. The file list, which in this case has 2 different, how you would call them, appearances. There is this one that shows the stack up along with the rest. And then there is the one that maybe looks more familiar, as this is very close to what you were seeing on Cockpit. Then here at the top right, you have the area where the workflow engine system is going to communicate with you, the user. So here you will have your input remarks, if there are any, or your to-dos, the job remarks as we call them here, or critical remarks in case something has gone terribly wrong. And in the bottom right-hand part, you see the top and bottom view of PCB, which you will recognize. From here, you have also access to QED, either embedded or inside a different tab page in your browser. There is the function to view the layer by layer image in this area, as well as the contents of the file that was at the basis of this image. Yeah. Now, just for reference, bear in mind, these 4 are 4 what we call Elea Web Components. I'm mentioning it here because it will come back later in my presentation, so just mark the word Elea Web Components, 1, 2, 3, 4. What else do we have in here? On the left-hand side, vertically, there is a bar with all sorts of editors, which we will discuss in more detail also and in practice later on. And here at the top, this is basically still a part of the queue management Elea Web Component. It's the thing where we can start a job or resubmit a job or modify its parameters and so on and so forth. Yeah. So those were 4 Elea Web Components that are part of the home page, you could call it, for the Nexus application. And if I would go into one of these editors, for instance, you will see that the screen changes and that, again, there are a number of other items here that appear, which again are Elea Web Components. Yeah. So these applications basically are built with this as the main tool, the Elea Web Components, and we will have an opportunity or a chance to talk about them in more detail as we progress through this presentation. I think this can do for now. I'm going to get out of here again. And as I said, we will come back to the details of these individual editors at a later point in this presentation. So if I can return here to my PowerPoint, there we go. By the way, this is a screenshot from the new installer. So also the installer has been overhauled, and you see that the theme that we use here is in line with what you saw in the new user interface. So it's blue and grayish and that sort of thing. Right, let's turn to the backend. As we said, we start there. As I said in the introduction or on the first slide, there is a whole bunch of new technology that goes into this backend server. And one of the first ones, and probably one of the more important ones as well, is this Elea image server. Now, Elea image server is an embedded software module for the generation of high-resolution dynamic display of DPF data in a browser-based user interface. What does that mean? A number of these components that you saw a minute ago show a static image like a PNG or others, but a number of other Elea Web Components actually display the real DPF data, like if you were on a CAM system and if you were working on a CAM system and do DPF viewing there. So that is something radically different from what we had before. That is that viewing of layers in certain of these Elea Web Components, I will call them maybe widgets from now on. It's easier and it basically boils down to the same thing. So a number of these widgets, they are actually fed with real DPF image data, and the machine or the module that makes sure that this happens is this Elea image server. If you remember, at some point I went into one single editor. It was the layers editor, and on the right-hand side you saw some sort of canvas where the circuitry was appearing. That is, for instance, one of these Elea Web Components that is displaying the real DPF data. The main features of this image server, so what can it do for us? It is basically giving us the opportunity to display a single layer or a multiple layer, and while doing so, it will generate mixed colors or overlay colors. Using this technique, we can do filled view or skeleton view or outline view as display modes, as you may know from the UCAMX WE application, for instance. It does lightning fast zooming, and the image after zoom remain razor sharp, because again, you're not zooming in on a static image that was generated based on a bitmap or something. This is really the DPF data. What else can you do through this Elea image server? It's measuring between objects or points. It has a built-in query capability, so by hovering your mouse over certain object or over an object, this module will tell you what decode this is and what size circle this is and whatnot, and it can do on-screen unit conversion. Yeah. So that's one big block in there on the backend that is going to enable part of the functionality of our web or browser-based, viewers, JobManager and JobAdjuster. Another important part is its partner, the command server. So the first one was the Elea image server. Here we have the Elea command server. And that module adds CAM-like functionality to the workflow engine Elea. It means that it allows modification of the DPF data on the server from within a browser. The typical case for this is what you see here at the bottom of the slide, where for some reason uh, a drill size has not been recognized correctly, or it's in mill and it needs rounding and God knows what. So the typical case is where you go into one of these editor, in this case the drill editor, and you want to change a drill diameter, for instance, from this 0.28 to 0.3. That is basically an action that you take on the DPF data. So what happens in the same way as what we were describing for the images, this module is going to capture commands that come from the browser, and it will somehow know that you want to change this 0.28 to 0.3, and it will apply this on the job that has been loaded on the server in memory. So all of these jobs, all of this data never gets to your browser. It's basically loaded into the memory of your Integr8tor server in the backend, and there is this constant communication between the browser editors, JobManager and JobAdjuster, and the backend part to make sure that A, images are updated and up to date, and B, if you want to do any changes to the DPF data, that gets transferred across correctly. In this first version, in the version that we present today, 2024-11, basically this is the most important application of that type. So changing drill diameters to make modification on the drill data. But with what I just said in the back of your head, basically we are now opening endless possibilities of having sort of small editors which allow you to modify DPF data or work on DPF data inside the browser. A typical application can have to do with outline. We have an outline editor that comes as part of this release already. It's a first version, but we are currently already working on its successors, where we want to be able to, if we don't find an outline ourselves automatically, we want to give you the tools to actually go and pick one from a shape that lies on a certain DPF layer, and that you will then promote as being the outline of the job. So that sort of thing. You may have seen cases where an archive comes in and one copper layer is divided into two Gerber layers, a paint and a scratch, or things like that, where you have to actually merge them together before you can go through a decent or a sensible analysis. All of this functionality will become possible, or is possible, under the Elea command server. Yeah, so that's certainly something which is going to mean a major step forward in terms of being able of editing the DPF data. The Elea Web Components is the third item on my list. We already discussed it or mentioned it in a couple of contexts. So basically, they are the main building blocks within our browser-based application. They are graphical widgets used or for use in a browser-based interface. One widget typically is going to represent one portion of the information, and if you combine several of these widgets together, as you have seen on the home screen, you get into, or you have the ability to create some sort of a very dynamic application for a specific subtask. Yeah. For the moment, the Elea Web Components are something that we use internally to shape our tools, to shape our browsers. But in later versions of Integr8tor, we will be offering Elea Web Components to you as well, so that you as an end user basically are in the situation where you can create your own HTML page that talks to, for instance, the workflow engine. And where you can use yourself a number of these components to present or to make an interface, for instance, to people on the shop floor, or to selected salespeople, or yeah. So not yet in this version, but that is something that we have in mind for versions later this year. WebDAV implementation. WebDAV is a standardized HTTP protocol extension for sharing data. It's something which is documented on the internet, so if you care to read about it, please do. What we use it for is not the full scope of this tool, but we actually use it to replace window shares and the related security issues that you have flagged to us. A number of people have come back that window shares are not the most secure tool either to share data. With WebDAV, we are moving away from window shares in order to get your data from your workflow engine server to your UCAM XWE, for instance, was the typical application where the UCAM XWE needed access to the DPF data, and the way that we did this in the past was via a Windows share. So from this release onwards, when you're using the Nexus line of products, so the Job Manager or the JobAdjuster, then this system is replaced by this WebDAV tool, which will then take care of the secure data, DPF data exchange, between the two sites, which is basically what you see here in this slide, more or less as just a sketch. On the one hand, you have the Integr8tor server that keeps all the data. The other one is front end with a Nexus JobAdjuster, for instance, and from the JobAdjuster you wanted to go to UCAM XWE. Well, this HTTP or HTTPS, depending on your setup, protocol is going to take care that the DPF and job data on the server, they get compressed first, then they are being transferred to the client where they get uncompressed and loaded into the UCAM XWE application completely transparently. So as a user, you don't really notice. Other item of interest, very much of interest even, I would say, is a REST API. The communication between our new front ends and the back end is basically something for which we use REST API technology. And because it offers a lot of advantages, we have also made the REST API available for you as an end user. So that means that from this version onwards, there are licenses that will unlock REST API on the workflow engine, so that, for instance, third-party applications like an ERP system or a quoting machine, they can actually approach the workflow engine server and collect from it the relevant information, so the information that they would need. Thinking of this makes the REST API the tool par excellence if, for instance, your backend, so your Integr8tor server, is in the cloud, or you're using it somewhere not on your own network. So if you need to collect or need to share data between Integr8tor and another application, then the REST API is basically a very handy and a very neat tool to get to that. I will do some examples later on. I have a small application called Postman, maybe you know that, in which we can see this at work. The REST API, as I said, is we offer it as a product for you, the end customer, to use it to make it part of your integration and your communication between systems. And it's basically offered in two variants. One is called Queue Control and the other one is called Job Review. So depending on the level of control that you need or exchange that you need, you might go for one or for the other. In Queue Control, basically, you have a REST API which has a capability of submitting jobs, of setting parameters and priorities. I think on one of the next slides there is an overview with the exact contents of both. But that means, for instance, that using REST API, you can also submit archives from elsewhere. So an ERP or a quoting engine could actually, as part of making a quote, could contain a part which is going to set off an archive on the integrator. Now, usually you will do this the other way around, because by the time you want to start making the quote, you would want the analysis data to be available. But just as an example or something to bear in mind, this is what REST API can do for you. I think this is indeed the slide where we are having, or where we are showing the different functions that are available within the REST API. And then if it has a tick in the first column, it's part of the queue control variant. And if it has a tick in the last column, it's part of the job review variant of the REST API, whereby it needs to be said that if you go for the second one, the job review variant, basically the queue control is included. So really in your last column, if you go for a license like this, then all these cells would end up ticked. That was the REST API. Another new element on the workflow engine Elea backend server is this WebSockets. What are WebSockets? Basically, they are notifications, push messages that can be broadcast by workflow engine Elea. It's very much comparable to what we have on our cell phones. When you're interested in the subject or application A, B, or C, you go in and download the app, and at some point the app may ask you, are you interested in receiving notification from us? And when you say yes, from time to time, you will get something which is called a push message. Well, very much the same thing happens in Workflow Engine Elea integrator from this version onwards, or can happen. If you think back of the example that we just gave with the REST API, you have a workflow engine integrator, and then you have another application that needs to have something from the workflow engine. With this system of WebSockets, the integrator part, so the workflow part, is basically going to broadcast a message out on the web whenever a job is finished. So that if another third-party application is interested in collecting information from that job that was just being flagged as finished, then for the ERP or the quotation engine, that would be the sign that there is data which is ready to be collected and that the process can go on. So this is a system, as we said, very much comparable to the notifications on the cell phone, where you, in this case, the third-party applications listens to these notifications and will pick up the interesting ones as they are being broadcast by Workflow Engine Elea. This means that WebSockets, in theory, have nothing to do with REST API, but they are very much complementary, of course, or they make a very nice complement to the REST API. So whenever a workflow engine Elea says, here is something ready, then other systems can come into action and do what they have to do. I think the last item worth mentioning on the backend server in this version of software is this backward compatibility module. It's basically a software environment that we have embedded for backward compatibility. That means in my introduction, I said that from now on you can access and you can do your day-to-day work and can use web-based browsers, but that doesn't mean that from this moment onwards all the rest disappears. So what we have done while developing this whole new front end, this whole new interface, is making sure that whatever happens there is also still compatible with all pre-Workflow Engine Elea clients, like the Adobe Air-based cockpit, the UCamXWE. So nothing is actually broken in this new scenario. By the way, to run your job manager and your job adjuster, you're going to have to add licenses or license keys to your license file. So that means that after installation of this new version, at first, everything is going to be like before. You will go to your cockpit and you can start working in cockpit. And we've done that basically because we want to offer you the possibility to adopt to all of these new technologies at your own pace. We don't want to put you in a situation where from one day to the next you have to overthrow everything and you need to reinvent your whole way of working and your operations. That's something which is possibly not the best option. So thanks to this backward compatibility system that we have in the workflow engine, we are now in a situation, or we are in a situation where you can do side-by-side operation with past and present tools. So as we said, that you can adjust to the new ways of working at your own pace. And I think the last line on this slide here says it's best. Your past investments are just as valuable to us as they are to you. I think this is the time where we want to leave the back end and turn again to the front end part. So our two new clients, JobManager and JobAdjuster. So in full, the Nexus JobManager and the Nexus JobAdjuster. Let's start with JobManager. What does it do? It is a fully browser-based client application which is going to allow you to submit archive, manage job queue entries, and do online viewing of your job data. Online in the sense that you are connected to the workflow engine. It's not like an offline PDF viewing tool or something. How do you get started with JobManager? Well, basically, as you saw briefly at the beginning of this presentation, you started from a URL, and whether you're going to end up with JobManager or with the JobAdjuster application is tied to the user authentication. So what's going to happen is at some point, the admin is going to set up user A, B, C as JobManager users and other users X, Y, Z as being the JobAdjuster users, that sort of principle. JobManager or all Nexus clients, I would say, are both HTTP and HTTPS enabled. So that's something that is then just a matter of setup. And I will take you through some of the, we have an online documentation platform where we, or where you will find a whole lot of information about all these new technologies, and this HTTP and HTTPS enabling is part of that. Very important, as it is browser-based, there is no client-side software to be installed, and more particularly the Adobe Air that we have used for many, many years with this new technology becomes obsolete. Looking a little bit closer then, what is inside the JobManager capabilities? Well, you have job queue management, with which you can add, modify, restart jobs. You can move a job to new location. There's the possibility to accept the job remarks, to continue a job, to abort, unlock, or remove a job from the queue. And while I'm thinking of it, that last one, you might be interested to hear that in these browser-based applications, so the JobManager as well as in JobAdjuster, the queue now has multi-entry selection possibilities. So if you think of removing something, for instance, you can now select 10 jobs at the same time, just as an ICT to know. At some point after logging in, you saw that we were on the home screen, and in the home screen we could see the job queue, we could have full contents, or we could see the full contents of the job archives. We had the stack up and the individual layer details and images, which were also available from this central area, and we had access to the input remarks, the job remarks, and the critical remarks. There's also possibilities, as you saw from there, to get to the QED PDF reports, and there is one or two items which are not listed on here still. That was the central area. So from the home screen, those are the things that you can do. But JobManager basically has also a number of dedicated viewers. Viewers because basically Job Manager is view-only application. So that means that this bar on the left that you saw, this vertical bar on the left with all these editors, in the case of JobAdjuster, they are real editors in the sense that you can go in there and modify something. In the case of Job Manager, they are basically viewers, yeah. Things that have been calculated in the backend, results from DPO or location information from the smallest copper width, whatnot. We will go through a number of these items in a minute. All of the information that has been generated on the backend can be viewed in one of these dedicated viewers with Job Manager. However, Job Manager cannot make any changes to whatever is being displayed there. So it is really view only. These editors, if you're okay with it, we're going to do them live later on in a session in a minute. In the actual software itself, it will make more sense rather than this just trying to explain here. So summarizing what is included in Job Manager, it's the whole thing with starting, restarting jobs, the job queue management, and viewing all analysis results in these dedicated viewer. Yeah, what is not included is the fact that you can do job edits on individual data, so no corrections of StackUp or a drill tool. That is the area which is reserved for JobAdjuster. Also reserved for JobAdjuster is the fact that you can take a layout into this UCAMXWE application. All right. And then we have basically the same overview for JobAdjuster, which is going to be very quick because it's basically the same as Job Manager, apart from the item marked here in red on this slide, which is the job data editing. So of course, JobAdjuster can also submit archives and see what's in the queue and do online viewing of the job data. But on top of that, it can intervene in case of problems or make changes to a data. Just like the Job Manager, also JobAdjuster is started from the URL. Basically the same URL as you use for the other one, for Job Manager. Because as we said, the distinction between the two is basically coming from the user credential. A user A or a user X will have been set up as different users. This one too is HTTP/HTTPS aware, so that can be set up according to your liking. There is no client software to be installed, obviously. This one has a couple of functions extra on the job queue handling functionality, and that is, of course, the exchange with UCAMXWE and UStack, as we already said, but also the exporting of files. You know, if you have an output, I don't know, DPF or ODB of the original job or the rebuild job, normally this is part of the process. When a job is processed at the end, this export happens automatically. But you also have this extra functionality where you can, on demand, more or less, re-output this data. And this is what we call the export of the files. So this is something that sits in JobAdjuster as well and not in Job Manager. So from the two, JobAdjuster is, of course, the most complete or the most comprehensive and most versatile tool. The same editors are available in JobAdjuster, again, according to the same principle, but here, this application, in some of them or in most of them, could actually go in and an operator could go and make modifications to the data, which is not the case for the Job Manager product that we saw earlier. So summarizing here, display data and analysis result, doing job edits, saving of these modifications, and as a result, potentially triggering partial reprocessing of a data set on the workflow engine. Those are the characteristics, the features of the JobAdjuster. I think this now brings us to the point where I want to switch back to, bear with me for a second. Yes, this is a little bit of focusing here, but I think we are here. I was saying this is the part where we want to go back to the application itself and have a look at some of these editors, these two slides that you saw with each of the applications. It's probably not a bad idea to have a look at them from here so that we can also see a bit of the software at work. This was the toolbar with all of these editors. And basically the top one is already one which is new, which is the technical requirements editor, or tech spec editor, as we like to call it. I have here a data set which is I'm going to use in order to show you what this is about. So when I take this data set and I get it into the editor, what I will have is basically the contents of the archive here at the top. And this you may recognize, the process parameters and customer and job identification here. These sections are basically the sections that you as a customer have set up yourselves, what we call custom parameters or process parameters. It's the thing for the specialists among you. It's this list of parameters that goes into qedconfig.xml. What this new application does is basically it offers a side-by-side view of a number of the files in the archive. So you have the images, the text file, the pictures. Here in this case, there was also this document which contains the information or some of the information that cannot be extracted from the Gerber files, but the information that is relevant for making the right decisions during engineering, of course. And what we do is basically from looking through this document, you can then easily go to your own fields. Like if we were trying to do this here, I see that the base copper thicknesses, well, they are in micrometers in this case, and that the material type is specified no more than just FR4. So if I had my own list of materials that I can use, I would just do this from here. Possibly there is something about the PCB finish or the 35 copper thickness that we have in here. So in this case, my setup has lists with predefined answers. In your setup, maybe these are free text fields that can come in. And at that point, what you can do is you can actually select from here and then do a copy, Control V and Control C, Control V to get these values into the appropriate field. One of the niceties of this editor is it's the only editor that will open while a job is still processing. And we have done that, of course, to speed up the whole process. We have reworked the input route into Integr8tor also a little bit, and we are now trying to give you as quickly as possible this list of files here. So very early in the process, after unzipping the archive, what you will have here is a number of documents, and as soon as these documents become available, basically you can turn to the technical editor or the tech spec editor to start doing the work. We will store these parameters temporarily while the job is still running. And when we come at the end of the process, we will pick them up from this special area, and we will make sure that they are on the QED PDF report right from the first time. So that's quite nice. I think also pretty interesting in terms of time gain, that you can do this while a job is still running. An operator can already do what needs to be reviewed. And that's only one side of the story, because also this one has already a second version coming along for a future release later this year. And that is the addition of an optional module in here in the tech spec editor, with which we will be extracting job parameters automatically. So at some point from the workflow engine, a process will be initiated that will go and examine all of these documents, and whatever is found in there will already be pre-filled out in your own customer parameter list, so that an operator, when he first accesses this area here, this tech spec, that he already has the results of a sort of analysis that was done on the document, and that in many cases the operator just has to confirm that indeed what was found in the automatic way is indeed what you wanted to be on the final report. So in the next phase, there's going to be more speed up that you can expect in this area. For each of these editors, you have this one, which lights yellow if you have made a change and you want to save it. In my case, I'm just going to bail out each time by clicking on this little cross and then discard the changes in order to just make sure that we don't trigger anything new. Next one is the layers editor. The layers editor, I'm going to be pretty quick. It's the same functionality that you know from the layers editor in your cockpit. You will have here a gridded view of all the layers in the archive, in which you can set their function, the position, the polarity, the color. Mind you, this is new. I suppose the base thickness and the finish thickness are two copper thicknesses that you can add in this grid view from your Nexus clients. These thicknesses, if you enter them, like a minute ago, we were looking at this document and it said 3535 for inners and outers. The values that you give in here will be reported on QED, PDF, and XML, obviously, but they will also be used, for instance, if you use conditional formatting on your QED. So if you want to have your spacings or your copper widths related to the thickness of the copper, then you can actually specify the copper thickness from here, and all the rest will be done automatically. This is the stacked view of the layer. So you will see that these tables are linked. The table down here is linked to this Elea Web Component here at the top. So if you click one on here, it will follow here. It has the possibility to do the drag and drop. Now this isn't two-layer. Maybe I can bail out quickly and we can do something on this. Which one do I have here? Maybe this one or this one. At least it's 4-layer. How many drills do we have in here? Let's take this one. Maybe we stay this one and go to layer editor. This one also has, it's quite a nifty one, this one also has a whole bunch of drill layers with it. But you see the same principle, and if we would now here go and move this around, then this gives you the possibility of changing the stack up. Also span, for instance. You can actually grab the start or the to or the from or the to, excuse me, from drill layers, and modify it in the same drag and drop style of way. And normally, as you do this, you should actually see these from and to values. You should see them being updated here. Yeah. So the layer editor, this gives me the opportunity to turn to the left here. This is one of these widgets which is displaying DPF data. So what you see here is basically a canvas, a drawing canvas with DPF information. It means that if I take my zoom here, I can actually go in here and here. And earlier on, when I was telling about the Elea image server, well, what you see here happening is the result of Elea image server being at work. Yeah, that Elea module, which is sitting on the server, is actually responsible for bringing these images here in filled view or skeleton view or outline view, whatever there is. As we can do here, this one. Let's see, this is the layer query function I was telling about. And this one here is the measure function. So if we go from here to here, for instance, am I doing something right? To here. Okay, also the simple points measuring. It's maybe it's click drag rather than click. Sorry. Also getting used to this new technology. The zoom in, the zoom out, the functions from the canvas, the changing of unit, and as we said, this is this query mode in which when you hover over a object, it should make sure that you get the information that this is a flash from decode 229, so a sort of easy tool to find out that this trace, for instance, is 150 micron wide. Okay, we get out of here. This was our layer editor. The next one is the drill editor. Again, we can be fairly briefly with the drill. It's basically very much the same functionality as you used to have in the cockpit variant of this editor. So again, you have your canvas here on the right, and on the left, the stack up view with the gridded view of the drill tools in this case. And then, as we said, from here, you will be allowed, for instance, to, if you click on a tool, you would see some sort of the outline skeleton of the image, and then clicking on one of these tools would actually show the occurrence of the tool that you have clicked on, and potentially can make changes here to the end dia or to the tool dia. If you're running in tool dias, you can run your tool adjustment scripts from here. So basically the whole set of tools that needed to get your drill files okay. Bailing out here as well. This is one of the new ones as well. It's the outline editor. In its first version, the outline editor is actually a tool which is going to present you with a number of what we call image outline candidates. Sometimes you have the impression that Integr8tor has not found the outline, but in many cases, it's not finding the outline, it's Integr8tor not being sure which of the 2 or the 3 outlines it suspects could be used, which is the right one. So in this first version of the outline editor, what we have here is in case there is doubt about the outlines and the system is not sure which one to take, so it has several potential candidates. They will be listed here, and together with, again, the viewer that we have here on the right-hand side, you will be able to have a look at who these candidates are, and then to decide whether they are of any use at all, so whether the correct outline is part of this list, and when that is the case, to make it clear to the system that the outline is basically going to the PCB or to the assembly panel. Yeah. This is the one where I said we're already working on a next version of this, where you will also be able to go on one of these other layers, typical mechanical drawings, and maybe find an outline itself, selecting with change and with windows, and then to define this as the outline to be used for the system. But as I said, this is for the moment work in progress. Next one down is the sizes editor. The sizes editor is basically the same functionality as you know from before. It's where you say, okay, I want to make an assembly panel, and the assembly panel, this was the base image that was found, and the assembly panel needs to be so many in X and so many in Y. So for the moment, basically, this is just pretty much a copy again of what we was before. Mind you, a JobAdjuster could make these assembly panels. A JobManager user could only see what anybody else have done. So the function typically to save something, here the one in yellow, will typically be disabled in case of a job manager user. Yeah. Okay, that was the sizes editor. Next one is a new one too. Well, I would say it's halfway new. It's new in the sense that what you're going to see here, it's definitely new that it comes into this type of editor. It's people or those amongst you who are familiar with Checkpoint may recognize this as the browser version of the standalone Checkpoint program that we used to have in the old context. So what we have here is basically the view on the distribution of the number of the minima, not only the minima, but sizes further up of several of these design characteristics, be it the copper width or the critical copper width, trace width, rings, whatnot. This too is something that we have integrated in this new browser-based interfaces. And I say interfaces, plural, because this is something that also a job manager could do. A job manager user could actually be stepping through, for instance, the minima for, what am I looking at now? The copper width. So this is copper widths that have been found, and I'm now stepping through the different locations on the board to see what this is all about. New with this function, so there is something new and extra as well, is what you're about to see now, but don't forget this is reserved for or to job adjuster users only. If you are a job adjuster user, what you have as extra functionality is this little part here on the left-hand side. We have the ability to set thresholds. I have been stepping through a number of items, which for me as an operator, I thought not really relevant, because I know that my colleagues in CAM are going to take care of these little copper areas on the antipads there. So one of the things that I would maybe like to do is make sure that these first, I am now at location 19, maybe I would like to blank out the 18 previous ones, because okay, they are there and Integr8tor is right. It is a very small copper area. There's nothing to be discussed about that. But I think, or I feel that they are not relevant. So what I can do is actually at the first one that I see, which is relevant, I could actually set what we call a threshold. Yeah. And at the time that I do, you will see here that in this window with the checks, the threshold column will be filled out for this particular feature. So the copper width is now a threshold that has been set interactively by a user of 0.1. You also see that it used to say here that I was on position 19 of so many. By setting the threshold, the counter is reset to 1. So it is as if these 18 other areas, which I thought were not relevant, are no longer there. But that's just an impression. They are still there. So these errors have not been cleared. They're just been marked in a special way, so that they will no longer appear on the reports that come out afterwards. Proof of that is if I remove the threshold, we are back at square one, and I would start again with the very first one from the 18 that we saw before. Other than that, again, the same canvas, the drawing area where you can see, zoom, measure, whatever you want to do. And then here there is the statistics which tell you, okay, this particular width on this particular layer, so many occurrences, and then again you can step through them. Okay. So this is called HotSpot, the HotSpot viewer, or in this case also editor. A job adjuster user could actually, as we said, be setting these thresholds. This is tied to a HotSpot license, but it's a license that goes on the server. So the actual clients, manager or adjuster, have nothing to do with licenses. They cannot be with or without. As soon as the backend, as soon as the Integr8tor server has the license and generates this information, both applications will be able to view the information that was generated on the backend, and the job adjuster, as we said, will be able to set some thresholds. So that was the HotSpot editor. The other one is the capabilities viewer. It's something that we have had before as well. It's similar to the HotSpot viewer. It's the application in which you give us your key characteristics to qualify the manufacturability of a board, and we will make this into some sort of setup for your system, and then every job that comes through will be subjected to this sort of it will be subjected to the relevant analysis, so we get to extract the normal parameters. And from these parameters, we will then use your rule set to build this sort of table that you see here, in which we will then say, okay, you have given us various difficulties of manufacturability, going from 3 to 12. And then we will show in this table here what we believe the board in its current situation or in the current state, in which of these categories the board falls. Again, it's not new, it's existing functionality, but it used to sit also in the checkpoint viewer, so the standalone application that we used to have in the, or that we still have in the previous context. But in case of Nexus, we have brought this into our browser-based viewers as well. Capabilities editor, this is the Buildup library. Probably you will recognize it as the one where you can store standard setup, standard builds, or any builds. Basically, they needn't be standard, but a system in which, if you're linked to a UStack, for instance, a situation in which the build that you have chosen or made in UStack, that you can actually load it into a library for further use, and then from here tick one that goes with the job, or that should go with the job, maybe directly 100% correct, or maybe it's one that is very close, and then from here you can take it again to, so you load this standard build from the library, you would load it onto the job, and then from here, once it's in the job, you can actually then go and take it up in UStack. Again, nothing new in terms of functionality, but just the fact that it's sitting here in the browser-based applications. DPO is Dynamic Panel Optimizer. Same thing. It's something that we have had before. It's this program that calculates potential assembly panel layouts and fabrication panel layouts and material sheet cutting options. I'm not going to go into detail on this. As I said, it's something that exists in the previous context as well. It's just the fact that you have it here in its new layout, in its new appearance, because it is part of the browser-based technology. I think that brings us, or has taken us through the editors. Maybe just a quick look down here still. There is this area for setup, so what we used to call preferences. That is now here in setup, and you will have the things with the licenses. And one maybe interesting thing is this one here, the users. This is the area where a job administrator will indicate which users are allowed to use the JobAdjuster license. So if the box is not ticked, the default is you are just job manager. And it's, just if you want somebody to become a JobAdjuster, then this will be ticked from here. And from that point onwards, if somebody uses his credentials like admin or Dirk or demo, I believe those are the three that are ticked. So whenever somebody of these three logs on, he will find himself in the job adjuster mode. Something else which is nice to know is that in here we have the version of Elea and the Nexus. What we do and what we have is we have separate online updates of this part of our application. So not the part on the server, not the backend, but our Elea applications and Nexus browsers, if there is new features to be added, or if we want to get on top of an issue that you have reported, if we want to get on top of that quickly, we have possibilities to make new versions online available. No, sorry, the other way around. We have possibilities to make them available online. And as soon as there is a new version, whenever you log into one of your applications here, the JobAdjuster or the JobManager, there will be a yellow screen that pops up advising you of the fact that there is new software that can be downloaded, and it will then be the responsibility of an admin person to do this. So this is kind of nice. It allows us to, certainly in the initial stages, to respond to any queries rather quickly. I think the last thing that I want to show from here is this question mark. That's the help function. I was referring to it earlier. This will probably pop up in other documentation as well, but if not, make a note of it. eleadoc.ucamco.com is actually the address for our online platform for everything that has to do with Elea and Nexus and Cockpit. Sorry, not Cockpit, of course, not Cockpit. But this is where you will find all of the relevant information, also more of the more technical information. So people who are into the setting up of these systems, they will find a wealth of information on here. It's constantly updated as well. So just, I don't know, if you would click through it quickly, it would tell you about whether and how you want to use reverse proxies, if and how you want to use HTTPS, and if you do, what do you have to do, how do you create a certificate, and how do you make this part of the setup, and which files do you want to modify in order to set this up correctly. And one of the very interesting parts in here, I think, is also, first of all, the list with the Elea Web Components, I think if we go here on the main page, you will have a visual overview. So all of these items that you see here, those are all individual Elea Web Components. And as we said before, currently we are using this in our own application, the Nexus-based or the browser-based viewers of the Nexus family. But in future, these tools, these blocks, these widgets, they will be made available in case you want to make some interfaces yourself or write HTML code that talk to the workflow engine, to the back end, and then you can actually integrate all of this into your own applications and interfaces. The last thing I want to show from here is the one here with the API. We talked about the REST API, and I wanted to show something in Postman. If I go, for instance, to this item, interacting with the workflow engine, and I go to endpoints, then you will find a link in here that is getting you to the documenter.getPostman.com. If you click on this, you will end up in an area where, first of all of these calls that we have, that we currently support, they are being explained and shown here with programming examples. So as we said, the idea of a REST API is, in many cases, that a third-party system is going to approach our workflow engine asking for some information. And this information, it could be, give me workflow engine, please give me the PDF image of layer so-and-so, or please give me the stack up, or please give me the top image, or give me the complete QED, or give me the QED PDF, or. So all of these items that you see listed here are basically items that a third-party program can address to the workflow engine, and if the information is available, workflow engine will return that information to the demanding or the requesting party, so to speak. This is just the dry text, the static version, but the real nice thing or interesting thing is at the top right here, you have a function which is called run in Postman. Now, hold on. I think before I do this, I want, because mine is, sorry, almost forgot. My Postman is set up to run with Nginx, so at this time I want to have Nginx running. So if I now go to run into Postman for Windows, I have it installed locally. I don't need to import, so I can cancel here. But basically now I am in a real live application. And in this live application, I have imported the set of REST API commands that are applicable for workflow engine Elea. So with my workflow engine running, that is of course the requirement. Your server, integrator server, must be up and running. You are now in a position to say, okay, I don't know, let's pick some out here. A job info. What is there any job information for a job with ID 5870? So if I would send this across, basically this information has been generated on the fly by my integrator server and is being returned here to the requesting application. In this case, it's Postman. And as you can see, the way or the format that we use to get this information across is JSON. Yeah, so it's a very popular format in communication between systems. There is whole lots of tools available out there that will enable you to, once you get a full file like this, to enable you to pick or to quickly get after one of these parameters that you're actually interested in. So there is a lot of free code that is available to handle JSON files. So this is one for job info. We could also do, there's a job status here, for instance. What is the job status of the job with ID 4841 on my system? It says the job is finished. Yeah. Are there any job remarks for job 4748? Are there any job remarks? Well, yes, there are any job remarks because this happened, and so on and so forth. If you needed an image, there is like the stack up image of, again, any ID that you care to ask about. This would be the stack up image for this particular job ID, or the bottom or the top PCB view, sorry, for 5871 this time. Or if you wanted to have the complete, sorry, not I was not here. The QED PDF, for instance, is also one which is sitting in this list here. So this would actually transfer you the QED PDF on the fly to a third-party system, and that third-party system could then take this or take part of it, start interpreting whatever is in there. So all of this is basically part of the REST API functionality. The last one I wanted to show is this get QED information is basically the call by which you get the full key QED report of a given job ID. Yeah. So these 2,000, I don't know how many lines, 3,000 lines, is basically something that also still exists, of course, in the QED.xml variant. So if you now need to transfer information from workflow engine Elea to a system that needs this portion of the data, this can now be done in a much more elegant and convenient way using this REST API functionality. Right. Unless I'm forgetting something crucial, which I don't think I do, I think this brings me to the end of my tour. And as you will probably agree with me, there is a lot to discover. So if after letting it sink in, you should still have questions, which is, well, not unlikely to say, please do not hesitate and get in touch with us via the usual sales or service channels. We will be happy to help out as usual. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned and bye-bye.